which she applies to many pursuits, including, of course, her artwork and family, but also her implementation of the professional guidelines, which can be found on the SNAG website, the Ask Harriet column on her blog, and committee work on the SNAG-affiliated Professional Development Seminar. She even teaches abs classes at her Y. Great abs, Harriet. It is true. I have worked with Harriet on several committees, have seen her lecture, and have come to regard Harriete Berman as a force of nature. Please welcome Harriete Estel Berman.
Welcome, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here today, to be part of this symposium. The title of my lecture today is Crafting Identity. But what does crafting identity actually mean? It could have many possible interpretations. Is it the making of an artist's identity? Is it the characteristics of craft? Or is it a social movement of craftspeople? These are a few of the famous iPod billboard ads. The Apple iPod is shown in the model's hands. The Apple iPod is an exquisite manufactured object. The characteristics are beautifully, carefully designed with highly desirable utility and performance. The advertising campaign matches the product. It is so powerful and effective that my children spent 2 hours this summer photographing themselves with the intent to Photoshop the image and turn themselves into an advertising icon. If only craft was this famous and highly coveted. The reason why I'm showing you the Apple iPod and the example of this piece is to openly acknowledge that my work is strongly influenced by both advertising and our consumer society. I am also concerned about many issues in the arts and crafts community. Tomorrow we will discuss many business approaches for artists and craftspeople. Today, perhaps, you will see my perspective in action. Most of my artwork seeks to bring a social relevance. By using recycled tin cans, I am making a statement about consumerism, overabundance, and identity within our consumer society. Other times, my work simply raises issues about questions on the environment and craft history. The word craft holds many powerful associations. Most of this audience, I assume, is comprised of makers. I hope to offer insight into how and why I make my work and how I craft my identity as a maker. What is crafting identity? I think of crafting identity as being comprised of 3 separate values. Is it based on the artist or the identity of the maker? Is it based on the type of materials or the identity of materials, such as gold and silver or tin and steel? Is it based on the characteristics or the identity of craft? This could possibly mean the distinction of the handmade object in an industrial society. We will start with an easy topic and one which we will discuss extensively tomorrow in the Professional Practices Workshop. That is the value of the artist's identity or the identity of the maker. Here I am standing in my studio. Behind me is a sign from a past exhibition. Actually, I use this photo frequently, such as on Facebook, studio shots, and publicity shots. It is both autobiographical and based on a piece I made in 1984 as part of the Appliance series. This is titled Ever Ready Working Woman. This adaptable appliance has all the features you have come to expect from the family of appliances you can believe in. It has optional beaters, real drill chuck in the front, a Wonder Woman electric cord lariat with a suction cup at the end, and it also has a lipstick cartridge which fits up inside of the handle. You can view its unique spark gun through the yellow plastic window by pulling the trigger. It says right on the side, Ever Ready Working Woman. The eyeshadow in the top is real makeup. It lets you choose right on the back. It says hot air, drill, mixer, and ray gun. Well, use this sculpture in every role, every activity, every day. Ask the woman who has tried it all, Ever Ready Working Woman. Back to the studio. Now you can see this in this slide that you realize that Ever Ready Working Woman behind me has more meaning in some ways. I did actually craft my identity. I made this piece as a reflection about how I perceive myself, a blend of utility and beauty, tools and fashion, hard work and feminism. These are a row of irons that are in my studio. The irons are another way in which I craft my identity as a maker. They are a domestic appliance representing the traditional female roles and beautiful industrial design. Irons are a strong symbol for me, so I chose a domestic iron to be my hallmark. This is it. It even has a power cord with 2 prongs. Irons are a traditional tool of women. It is also a pun on the word iron for the hallmarking tools, which are made from steel and iron. I assume you know what a hallmark is, right? The hallmark is the maker's mark that's stamped into traditional silver or jewelry. This is to indicate the name of the artist or maker or the craftsperson. And here are a few historical examples. And here's how my hallmark really looks. For this particular piece, I stamped the hallmark in sterling silver and cut it out as a small charm. But that was a rather unusual way for me to hallmark my work. Usually I stamp it right into the metal. You can see it right there. Going back to my studio. Recently, I found a great iron. The chrome was perfect. It had a red, translucent plastic handle. It had an amazing, fabulous dial. It says highest heat, hot or colder, lowest heat. It even has a temperature dial. There we are, the most beautiful, amazing iron. And on the back is written, American Beauty. How seductive can you get? A domestic iron named American Beauty. This appliance came from an era in which the appliance would have been a significant object, even a present with the ultimate in appliance features. A temperature gauge and a temperature dial. For its time, not unlike the Apple iPod that you saw earlier, held in your hand. This silver iron was made in 1980 and was the first piece in the series titled The Family of Appliances You Can Believe In. The exterior is actually sterling silver, patinaed to look like iron. I made it in graduate school. Perhaps it was At that time, I was interested in both fiber and metal. And my graduate school professor, Stanley Lexon, actually accused me of hammering as if I was ironing. So, you can, as you open the iron, an image of me automatically slides into place with a hammer in my hand. In a society in which the manufactured product can be well-designed, beautiful, seductive, contain multiple, almost magical functions, can craft and the beautiful object really still be relevant and valued? Between 1980 and 88, I made over 20 appliances. The irony of the entire series was that I was actually fabricating, lovingly crafting the manufactured object by hand. This is a life-size photo of me as the appliance lady. I'm dressed up like a 1950s lady holding one of the early appliances right there. I understand this photo is actually still standing at the National Ornamental Metal Museum in the basement to surprise unwitting visitors like Gary Griffin. Oh, is it? Okay. I wish I had her back, but that's all right. One of her stands also in my studio. In case people walk in, they think somebody's there. It actually works. There are many pieces in which the identity of the artist plays an important role. This is a Harriet Berman refrigerator, but if you're not sure, it says right on the front, Harriet Berman, with a small GE, except it actually says HB right there. I made this piece because I thought you could tell so much about people's lives when you opened up the refrigerator. When you open up this refrigerator, shelf automatically extends, complete with a plate, fork, knife, and spoon. It also has a TV freezer without a trace of frost, built-in telephone, and an easy access toothbrush holder, which you can't see. So, there are many pieces and many ways in which the identity of the artist actually plays a significant role. We saw this image earlier when I was talking about my Hallmark. Notice the writing right there that says Burr-made. On larger pieces, I use the term Burr-made to identify the artist. On this piece, if you turn it upside down, you can see that it says Burr-made right there on the bottom. Now, the reason why I write Burr-made is several. First of all, Burman is not a very good name for an avowed feminist. So, I write M-A-I-D for the name of a woman, and also to refer to M-A-D-E, made by hand. On more recent pieces, Burr-made is no longer on the back or underneath, it's front and center. This is actually a three-dimensional fruit crate label, and the bracelets contained within are also made from recycled tin cans. Now, the reason why I do this is because it is used as a fruit label because California is both an archetypal consumer culture and it reflects the leader in recycling movement and green design. I put postcards out there. I'm not quite sure where they are, but you can take one of this particular piece. Fruit crate labels were actually invented by California growers as an early 20th century promotional for their fruits and vegetables. California's bountiful agricultural industry of fruits and vegetables now has become Silicon Valley, which blooms with inventions and technology ventures. The bracelets inside represent the innovative and entrepreneurial spirit of California, exporting ideas and products from its fertile valleys. So we have 3 bracelets here. The Scharffen Berger bracelet, Scharffen Berger chocolate, early California olives, and the Williams-Sonoma bracelet. Here's the Williams-Sonoma bracelet. You can see both views. Since Phil's here, I was artist in residence for the SIGGRAPH conference, invited by Phil. And this is like part of my CAD camp experiences there. So venturing into new technology. I think artists can actually use their identity to develop their work, bringing the most personal qualities and unique vision, and then take this identity to promote their work to the outside world. This iron is titled Idols of Generations, Allusions to Prophecy. There are many levels to this piece, including the autobiographical content. First, it's an iron, and it looks exactly like my Hallmark. The autobiographical content that it contains continues with the thorn in the handle. The thorn is a symbol for the pierced hands of the crucifixion, but also it conveys a personal reference for the painful angst in the creative process, and also the painstaking effort that it takes to make this work, which really destroys the appearance of my hands. My hands look ugly. If you look inside the iron, looking closely, you'll notice that it was constructed with sterling silver and 14-karat gold, which brings us to our next area of discussion. I'd like to explore the second value of crafting identity. Is it based on the type of materials or the identity of the materials? The silver, iron, and the icon it contains were sterling silver and 14-karat gold. My use of precious materials in this piece was intended to mock metalsmithing's obsession with technical prowess and precious materials as a justification of value, and at the same time comment on the art world's prejudice against against the craft as a low art. An ad for Ivory dishwashing detergent from a 1960s magazine that I remember was used as the icon underneath. The ad shows 3 generations of women, the mother, daughter, and grandmother. Typical of the historical metaphor from Greek Orthodox religious icons and similar religious painting, the faces are cut out and the metalwork goes around the face in a halo. So in my icon, the mother, daughter, and grandmother are like the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and they compare their hands in front of the plates. The plate replaces the saintly halo as depicted in the religious icons and famous paintings. The hand, the symbol of the handmade, is treated reverently to honor the craft of making. A major theme of my work came and changed in 1989 when I decided to use only pre-printed steel and tin cans to construct my work. I decided that I couldn't stand the idea of taking more new materials to construct one more thing, adding to the overabundance of our society. By using the post-consumer recycled tin cans, I was reusing the materials and literally taking them out of the waste stream of our society. These are actually product packaging that most people would have thrown away or perhaps recycled. It took me a long time to figure out how to open the tin cans carefully to preserve the images without damaging, and I have hundreds, if not thousands, of tin cans. They're organized by color and theme, or crackers, or dollhouse material. My agenda for using tin cans as recycling evangelist has been further inspired by what this material says about our material culture. Susan Holt, in a review in Metalsmith magazine, this was quite a while ago, said that my tin cans were a signature material, and that really surprised me. I just couldn't imagine that tin cans had taken on an identity associated with me. And this was our second element of crafting identity, is value based on the identity of the materials. Tin cans, one step away from trash, have adopted a value to me and an identity with my work. These materials are not as precious as gold and silver, but in many ways reflect more accurately the values of our society. In this dramatic and colorful jewelry, the colors and the patterns and the words taken from the post-consumer tin cans symbolize our personal search for identity in our consumer society. Barcodes and brand name material from post-consumer tin cans recycle our unconscious consumption of advertising, marketing, and possession as identity. This slide portrays a 9x9 lawn of grass. Each one of the 32,400 blades of grass was cut by hand so that it would have a unique curve and shape. And then each blade of grass was carefully inserted into panels that were laser cut. So it was a combination of tedious handwork and the latest in metalworking technology. Despite the large scale, there's another story. Many of the examples of my work refer to the traditional aesthetic or the value of craft. This brings us to our third issue today. Is it based on the characteristics or the identity of craft? I used tin cans to construct this yellow chair. It's titled Material Identity. The chair is a homage to craft identity and influenced by the designs of Charles Eastlake. If you're not familiar with Charles Eastlake, he was a design critic in the 19th century that was more famous at his time than William Morris. In 1868, Charles Eastlake wrote a book that was a bestseller on both sides of the Atlantic titled Hints on Household Taste. He bemoaned public taste, corrupt fashion, cheap decorative workmanship. His insights lead us to examine more thoroughly both craft and the manufactured object. Here's the back of the chair again. You saw it earlier as both an example of my Hallmark and Bermaid. But now we're talking about the identity of craft. And that can easily be discussed if you look at how I make my work. Hourglass figure, The Scale of Torture, was the first piece that I made with pinking shears. The edges were bent up. So even the thought of standing on this scale would be extra painful, as if standing on a scale isn't painful enough already. The many sharp edges were a visual cue that reinforced the artistic statement. Gradually, the use of pinking shears developed into a new fabrication technique that was vital to other work. For example, I used pinking shears to construct these beads titled Worrying About Worry Beads Coming Undone. The edges were cut with pinking shears, and every one of the forms represented several months of experimentation using the pinking shears. And you can see this in the close-up image. The edges were all cut with pinking shears, and some of the forms led directly to the construction of my first teapots. And then I decided that I would also make a coffee pot, which in this case led to making the cups. And the first two cups took 75 hours. But then I thought, I have it all figured out. So I decided that I'd make 200 cups, which took 3 years to make the 200 cups, and then another year to make the video. So what we're going to do at 12:45 cut into your lunch. If you want to, it's totally optional. You can come and watch the videos up here. So, let's discuss a piece that combines all the issues raised so far: the identity of the maker, the identity of the materials, and the identity of craft. We will start with a sterling silver chocolate pot, dated 1760 by Boston silversmith Zachariah Brigden. We know that he's the maker of this chocolate pot because he actually hallmarked the chocolate pot. And although he was a contemporary of Paul Revere, he's not as well known. So, does the identity of the silversmith actually affect or influence the value of the historical piece? Clearly, the fame or the identity of the maker does influence value. In revolutionary America, chocolate was quite exotic. In fact, it was extremely expensive, so it paralleled the luxury of a sterling silver chocolate pot. At that time, anything made of silver provided a portable form of a family's wealth. A physical object made of silver was more reliable than the accounts of a bank, which might collapse in a financial crisis. Clearly, the identity of the materials contributed to the value of the craft object. More than 200 years later, I question the relevance of making a sterling silver chocolate pot in the 21st century. Taking the historical piece as a reference, I made my 21st century edition, inflated in size, more than 5 times bigger than the original. Because when you go to Starbucks, the smallest coffee you can buy is a tall. And one muffin is enough calories to half your day. My chocolate pot is titled Obverse Obsession. The top and bottom edges use a heavyweight aluminum foil, which is crinkled to look like the wrapper, the silver ends, on a chocolate bar. To add further irony, the kiss on the very top finial is carefully constructed from sterling silver, but intentionally made to look like real aluminum foil. With all these ironic twists and turns of the materials, is there an identity of materials? Is value determined by the materials used? Historically, in the 18th century, chocolate was considered a healthful drink with aphrodisiac-like properties. Casanova supposedly imbibed in chocolate before his romantic exploits. In my contemporary version, the chemical properties of chocolate are written all over the chocolate pot. So, we have both, let's see, we'll have to look for a few. Notice it says feel good, but right up at the top there is Cialis and Viagra to refer to the 21st century sexual stimulants. And then you have and Adam, whatever. Ingredients, which are too hard to even read. The active ingredients of chocolate. Oh, I see caffeine. Do you see caffeine? Right there at the bottom. So if you look on the handle, you can actually see where it says dopamine right there. Right there's back. There's another active ingredient right there. The Cialis. Okay. What I'd like you to think about is that every artist needs to establish their own identity to do their best work. The work that reflects their soul, their unique vision, their personal perspective. An artist must also develop their own identity in materials and their own identity of craft. I will actually go ahead and say that searching for your identity or style cannot come from a book or a workshop, but it needs to come from your personal effort in the isolation of your studio. Finding your identity most likely will not be easy, but it needs to look easy. Have you ever watched a dancer and the performance was so remarkable that it made you want to dance? Or did you listen to a singer and think that you wanted to learn how to sing? As you have seen, my work consciously integrates multiple layers of issues and perspectives. The identity of the artist, the materials, and the craft are important to me. This is crafting my identity. Yours may be different. I would like to conclude with what may be a controversial topic. As much as my education and professional experience comes from a craft background, handcrafting as an identity has become suspect in my mind. When we look at this iron at the beginning of the lecture, I didn't tell you what happened when I Googled American Beauty iron. Near the top of the results was a posting for American Beauty ironwork sold by Target for $24.99. So, as you can see, when you look down at the description of the item, it actually says handcrafted construction for $24.99. In our consumer culture, the description of handcrafted has been thrown around way too loosely in recent years. Consequently, handcrafted is no longer, in my mind, a demarcation of value. I have posted some of my work on Etsy. If you're not familiar with it, it's spelled ETSY, which is a website dedicated to helping people post their handcrafted items for sale online. It costs 20 cents to post one item. It has become very popular with over 2 million postings. If you go to Etsy and type in the word handcrafted, which I did right there, you will see that a lot of stuff comes up, including $5 handmade soaps. Here's where I write in, right there. I admire anyone who wants to make things, but I will say that the DIY or do-it-yourself movement trades on the idea of handmade work as handcrafted while eliminating or at least simplifying a requirement for skill. And here's the rest of the page on Etsy for handcrafted items. Just as consumer marketing sometimes borrows images and language from the arts to infer quality upon products, this is titled Witnessing the Weight of Words. If you look on the side, it actually has tin cans. This one says limited edition, which came from a Ritz can. So the irony is, how can there be a limited edition Ritz cracker tin when there's probably thousands, if not a million, made? So the term handcrafted has been used here, or limited edition, to infer a traditional quality that otherwise is a rather common item. Although I greatly honor the fabrication of work by hand, as you have seen, the value of something described as handmade or handcrafted has been diluted. To me, it's been a sad trend that even some colleges are closing their craft departments because the perception of craft and the handmade is not considered an art, but an archaic vocation. And to some extent, they're right. To finish on a more upbeat note, though, I believe that this should all challenge us in the crafts community. The attribute of being handmade does provide a human intervention that we can all appreciate. And as a gift item, that may be sufficient. But to excel in developing your own craft identity, other elements, other attributes, and greater substance must be integrated into your work. There is so much more that can make your work stand out and have an impact. Look back at the remarkable iPod ads. Apple turned a commodity music player into a desirable must-have consumer product. It is beautiful and well-designed, and buyers willingly pay a premium price to have a music player that is more than just a music player. We should learn something from even this mass-manufactured object. As a crafts community, we should demand excellence from ourselves. Our creativity and vision should burst the boundaries of easy categorization. It takes effort and sometimes setbacks and failures. But each of you must find your own identity through your own effort, your own history, and your own vision. It takes constant self-questioning. But if you challenge yourself to crafting an identity as unique for your work, I think it is a worthwhile journey. Thank you very much. I put my website up here so you can look for my website. You can also look for me on Facebook and become my Facebook friend, or look for me on Flickr and join that social networking site. We have time for a few questions.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, what are your questions? Nancy?
Harriet, what is the structural, what is that rigid structure under the chocolate pot? I mean, what is it?
It's all recycled tin cans.
Underneath, is there, how do you, it looks like you hammered it in, but what is it underneath?
The aluminum foil part?
The black part.
The black part, it's all tin cans. It's all tin cans.
Inside structure.
In the bigger pieces, I do make a inside structure, but again, it's all tin cans. I just build up some like internal, like triangular or hexagonal shapes to start with, then maybe put a layer of tin cans and build a substructure first, and then I start layering over my exterior appearance. And the chairs that you saw very briefly are not substantial enough for anybody to sit on. Well, some lady did, but we won't go there. I had to fix it, and they had to pay for it. Yeah.
How long does it take you to make a piece, like the chocolate pot?
Chocolate pot might be 500 hours.
And how do you balance being, obviously, you have an outgoing personality, being alone all the time?
Oh. Well, I actually lead 6 exercise classes a week. So that means that every single day I usually exercise at least 2 hours. That's one thing. And because I lead the classes, that kind of becomes my exterior, going out into the world. Otherwise, I am kind of a hermit. And the thing I love doing the most is actually staying home and working. But that's not really a very good, for my head, it's not really very healthy for me to stay home alone all the time. I also have 4 people that work for me part-time. So I do have people coming in and out. Some people only work 4 hours a week, some people work 12. So it fluctuates, but I'm not really always by myself. In fact, when I am alone to work, that's like my most treasured time. Any more questions? I assume somebody must have a question. Yeah.
Do you want to work tin cans?
Yeah, sure. People send me tin cans. I get tin cans from everywhere. Like, my father collects tin cans for me. He lives on the East Coast. Sometimes I just receive a surprise box. UPS truck drives up and somebody sent me tin cans. So I always take tin cans, and I'm also working on, I think I put it here. These are other pieces. Pencil project. Don't use that address. You contact me through my website if you want to send me pencils. I'm working on a big piece about using number 2 pencils, and it is going to be, at least I'm going to start assembling it in November at the California Art Educators annual conference. That'll be very interesting. And so people send me pencils in the mail, and they can be anything, even little stubs. That's totally cool. Yes?
2 questions.
One, have maybe tried using aluminum cans, and two, are there any tips about flattening her cans?
I don't like soda cans, those aluminum cans, because they're too thin. The carbonation in the tin can, the drink itself is under pressure, which makes the can seem more solid. But once the contents are removed, the can is really soft. Plus, those cans fade even more quickly than the cans that I use sometimes fade unpredictably. But the soda cans, I know they fade really super easy. And it takes a lot of work to open tin cans. There is no trick. It's hours of work, which is one of the reasons why I started hiring somebody right away to open the tin cans for me, because I invest a lot, not in my materials, but in opening the tin cans and flattening them and storing them. Yeah. Question? Yes.
Are they all cold connected, or do you use solder?
For the most part, it's all cold connection. I make my own little aluminum rivets. I like using gold rivets, especially because 10 karat gold is really soft. So if I can't access both sides, but I use that just for the working properties of gold. With the gold price being so high, I use sterling. I do occasionally use a low temperature solder, but I prefer not to because it does impact the long-term viability of the can. Oh, didn't I see another question over there? Okay, any more questions? Yeah.
Do you PDN or adjust color?
Never.
Just
The only thing I'll paint is the rivets if I don't like the way they look. Otherwise, it's like my personal rule that I won't fix the tin cans. I won't fix them. Sometimes a few examples I've actually painted them because I wanted them to look a little different, but that's pretty rare. Most of the time I'm just using them as I find them. And I want to live with that like patina of use, though I'm not particularly fond of scratches, but that's just the perfectionist in me. Yeah?
are the Berger cans ones that you create, or are they?
Oh, it's the lettering for Bermade is all cut out of recycled tin cans. So that happens to be one of my secrets is use a mermaid butter cookie and cut the M off and put a B in front of it. So that's a quickie way. Otherwise, I actually do a lot of pieces in which I actually construct. I have boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of lettering cut out from the recycled tin cans, and I'll make all kinds of stuff, including my name badge. So you can look at my name badge later. Yeah.
Do you watch TV or surf the internet? How do you keep up with your consumer culture information?
Oh. I think we're all surrounded by it. I do watch TV. I see it everywhere. What?
What do you watch?
What do I watch? Usually I try to limit myself to 1 hour a night of something I really like, but I always have to keep working while I do it. That's just the worker bee in me, but I like trash like America's Top Model. Lots you can learn from America's Top Model. And I like Heroes. You really wanted to know, I'm telling you. I watch Heroes. I usually, Ugly Betty. I love the commercials. My husband's usually like turning the commercials off if he's anywhere near me, and I'm like always wanting to watch the commercials. The commercials are so revealing about the messages that they communicate to our society and how much we're exposed to. And then there's a couple of amazing, really good books I also read about advertising and sociology. Those are my favorite topics. But I'll recommend a book to you called Buying In if you're interested in learning more about our consumer culture. It was a really interesting, entertaining book. It's by Rob Walker. It was fascinating, and I was on his blog, his Q&A. So you can go to my website and find the link on my upcoming events page to that blog. But it's a really fascinating blog about marketing. Go ahead.
Study that was done, exercise, I hear you exercise, actually prevents dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I'm working on that too. No, I firmly believe in exercise. I know a lot of people think they don't have time, but in fact, I think it really keeps me from getting depressed. Because lots of times, I think everybody understands that idea of working in your studio and nobody's going to like it. And you wouldn't believe how I ripped myself up before I gave this lecture last night. You rip yourself up about it's not going to be any good, it's not going to turn out. And it just keeps me sane and going. So I firmly believe in exercise for a well-balanced life. Any more questions? Yeah.
I had a really sexy coffee can that was old, had some rust on it. Would you still use it?
Oh, yeah. I use everything. I never say no. It's just when you say rusty tin can with a lady on it, right? Sexy lady. It's interesting how advertising has changed and it hasn't. Though we didn't discuss it in this lecture, it's very interesting how women are portrayed in our society, too. And I make a lot of pieces about that.
So rust and chipping and...
You never know. I'm always surprised. Sometimes the most pedestrian tin can comes in as a lifesaver. So I love everything, yeah.
Do you make these attachments, mental attachments to some of these tin cans and keep them in a special place? And
I have a few that I set aside. Like I showed you a slide at the very beginning of a bunch of tin cans. That was kind of like my special place where I put some that I couldn't bear to cut up. But I try not to, because then it means you can't use it. Or sometimes I have, didn't discuss it very much, but I also use vintage steel dollhouses. And I've had over 300 vintage steel dollhouses. And at this point, I stopped cutting them up. And they're all hanging all over the ceiling of my studio. And so if I need one, I'll take it down and cut it up. But you do get kind of mentally attached to things sometimes. You appreciate the message on that tin can, and you think, nobody's going to see it like I do. Go ahead, yeah, question.
How will Sarah Palin affect your work?
Oh, it would be really unfortunate that we would have a president and a vice president, or in this case, that would be mocked for another 4 years. It's so unfortunate that the world mocks our government leadership. It's really bad. But I hope she's not elected. Whoops, and I hope that there aren't too many Republicans in the audience. But a bulldog with lipstick just doesn't cut it with. Okay. Are we up? We have 3 more time, or we're up? Okay. Any more questions?
So,
yeah.
So a metal sign with bullet holes in it would be okay?
You never know. You never know. I don't turn down anything. It's always a surprise to me. Yeah. Well, I hope that we'll conclude for now. At 12:45 we'll show the videos. You're not required to watch them, but you might like it. And thank you very much for listening.